Welcome back to Backspace Academy. Coming up next, what I'm going to do is run through all of the products and services that are offered on AWS. Now, there's an enormous amount of services, so rather than go through them all in one hit, I'm going to break it up into a lot of sections, and then at the end of each section, I'm going to give you an example of how to use those services, and then after that, we'll do a hands-on session or a lab where you can actually use those services yourself hands-on. So what I need to do now is just give you a very quick introduction to the different types of cloud computing models that are available. Infrastructure as a service, it contains the basic building blocks for cloud IT. What that means is that is nuts and bolts stuff. So if we want to launch a Linux server and we want to manage that Linux server ourselves, that is how we would do that as infrastructure as a service. And we would do that using the Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2 service. The next level is Platform as a Service or PaaS. And that's where AWS will take a little bit more control over over the underlying infrastructure. So AWS manages that underlying infrastructure and the hardware and operating system normally. And a good example of that would be the relational database service. And in that service, AWS, they provision all the operating system, the server and everything to run that, but you still need to do the high-level administration of that database. And then finally, we've got Software as a Service or SaaS. And that is a complete product that normally runs in a browser, and it is mostly refers to end user applications. A good example of that would be Office 365 or Salesforce.com. And you'll hear another term used a lot with AWS, and that is serverless computing. And so that allows you to build and run applications without having to think about servers. You don't need to provision the server yourself. AWS will do that for you. It's also referred to as function as a service or abstract services. Examples of that are the simple storage service where we will be using at the end of this lecture, where we create a bucket and we put objects and files into that bucket. We don't know what's behind that bucket. Obviously, there's going to be an operating system, most probably a Linux operating system, a file server, there's going to be hard drives. We don't need to worry about that because AWS, they look after all that for us. AWS Lambda is where you can run code in the cloud, again, without service. You just provide AWS your code. AWS looks after everything for you. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database in the cloud as a service. And Amazon Simple Notification Service that can send out notifications to your users. So that's a pretty quick introduction of the different types of cloud computing models. The best way to really get a good knowledge of it is to go through all these products, get your hands on with them, and then you'll fully understand it a lot better. So there's only one more thing to do, and that is, let's get into it. Welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this lecture, we're going to run through some of the storage services that are available on AWS. Then we'll look at some examples of how you can use these, and finally, we'll finish up with a hands-on lab using one of these services. Amazon Simple Storage Service, or S3 for short, it's designed to store and access any type of data over the internet. It's a serverless service, and as such, we don't need to worry about what is behind it. There's obviously a file server, an operating system, a hard drive, but we don't need to be concerned about that at all. We just simply need to create this thing called a bucket, and then we upload objects to that bucket. The bucket grows as we add objects to it, and the size of that bucket is theoretically unlimited. AWS, it just looks after everything for us. Amazon Glacier is the cheapest storage option on AWS, and it's used for long-term archiving of data. It's a serverless service, just like Amazon S3, but it is not as readily accessible as S3. So it should only be used for content that is to be archived. You can also set up a lifecycle rule that will automatically migrate old data in Amazon S3 automatically over to Glacier for long-term archiving. Amazon Elastic Block Store, or EBS for short, is a highly available, low-latency block storage, and it's specifically for attaching to servers that are launched with the Amazon EC2 service. We'll learn more about the EC2 service coming up, and it's similar to attaching a hard drive to your computer at home. Works in the same manner. It's block device storage. Amazon Elastic File System, or EFS for short, is network attached storage, and it's specifically for Amazon EC2 servers. Because it is network attached storage, this allows multiple servers to access the one data source, in a similar way to a NAS on your network at home can be accessed by multiple computers on that network. The AWS Storage Gateway enables hybrid storage between on-premise environments and the AWS cloud. It provides a low latency performance by caching frequently used data on premises while storing the less frequently data in Amazon cloud storage services. A Snowball device is a portable, petabyte scale data storage device that can be used to migrate data and large amounts of data from on-premise environments over to the AWS cloud. You simply download your data to the Snowball device, then you send it off to AWS, who will then upload that data to an AWS storage service for you. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of using the AWS storage services. In orange there, we've got the AWS cloud. Now, we can create a VPC inside that AWS cloud. And that VPC, or virtual private cloud, is our own private space within the AWS cloud. And that is an impenetrable fortress against attack. And no one will be able to enter our own private space without us allowing that to happen. So let's just say we launch 2 servers in our VPC. Now we want these servers to have access to data and somewhere to store that data. And so in a normal environment, you would just add a hard drive to that server. So in the same way, we can attach an Amazon Elastic Block storage device to our servers. So that's great. We've now got high-speed access to our data. But what if we want that data to be available to both of those servers? So here we've got 2 EBS volumes. What if we want that data to be on one volume only? So as we know it on our computer at home, we can't attach a hard drive or a block device hard drive to multiple computers. It just doesn't work like that. So in a situation like that, in your home network at home, you would just go out and purchase a NAS, a network attached storage device. You would attach it to your network. You would set up your operating system in your desktop computers to have a mount target for that network attached storage. So when you go to your G drive or whatever it is, or E drive or F drive, whatever it is, that will point to that network attached storage. In the same way that we can do that with our network at home, we can do the same thing with AWS. So Elastic File System is network attached storage. And so that, with a mount target, can enable multiple servers to access the one data source. Now, what if we don't want to worry about mount targets and block devices and all this sort of stuff? We just want somewhere we can upload objects to, in a similar way to we do with Google Drive or something like that. And we also want to have an automated solution that over time migrates that data over to something more low cost and more long-term for archiving. Now that is where Amazon S3 comes in. And so we can use Amazon S3 to create a bucket, store objects in that bucket, delete objects, do whatever we want with it. And we can also set up a life cycle rule on that bucket so that over a period of time, as objects age, they can be migrated over to an Amazon Glacier Vault for long-term archiving. It will still be accessible, it just won't be as readily accessible as the S3 bucket. But the advantage is that we'll be using the lowest cost storage that's available on AWS. Now, that S3 bucket will be located in the AWS cloud. It's not located in our VPC. So remember we said the VPC is our private space within the AWS cloud. And nothing gets through it without us allowing it to come through. So that is where the VPC endpoint comes in. So we can create one of those, and that will allow traffic to flow in and out of our VPC specifically for that S3 service. So let's have a look at a hybrid storage example where we've got on-site storage in a corporate data center, and we've also got that stored in the AWS cloud in Amazon S3. Why would we do that? Well, it's great for a disaster recovery solution because it provides high-speed access to our data in our corporate data center, and at the same time, we're taking advantage of the durability and availability of Amazon S3 as a disaster recovery solution. So the first problem that we're going to encounter is that this corporate data center will have petabytes of data. And to transfer that over via the internet to the AWS cloud is not going to be practical. So AWS, they can send out to us a Snowball device, and that is a high capacity device that can store petabytes of data. And so we can upload, when we receive that Snowball device from AWS, we can upload our data to that, and then we can send that back to AWS, and they will upload that for us into the Amazon S3 bucket. And so that solves that problem for us. So then we've got to find a solution for making sure that the data in our corporate data center is synced with our AWS cloud. Now that's where the AWS Storage Gateway comes in, and that will orchestrate all of that for us. And so if you have got a high-speed link between your corporate data center and the AWS cloud, which you can with the AWS Direct Connect service, you can have the AWS Storage Gateway to orchestrate and manage that all for you. And what it will do, it will get your popular content, your content that is frequently accessed, and it will store copies of that on site in your on-site storage. But at the same time, it will store all of that data in an Amazon S3 bucket for you. And so then you've got the advantage of having all of the durability and availability of Amazon S3 as a disaster recovery solution. But at the same time, you've got high-speed access to your data, which is cached on the corporate data center. Let's have a go at using the Amazon S3 service. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to use the AWS Management Console to connect into the AWS cloud. And then we're going to create an Amazon S3 bucket. We're going to upload files to that bucket, and then we're going to download files from that bucket. And then finally, we're going to empty and delete that bucket. Now, there are lab notes for this lab and the further ones coming up. So make sure that you download the Introduction to AWS lab notes that come with this course, and let's get into it. Now, before we start the lab, you need to make sure that you have signed up for an AWS account. If you haven't, click on the sign up button up here at the AWS website. Once you've completed that sign up process, make sure that you take note of the email address and password that you used to sign up with. So once that's done, you can go to My Account and select the AWS Management Console. Once you've done that, you can log in using that email address that you used to create your account and the password that you used as well. So once you do that, you'll be into the AWS Management Console. Once you've logged into the AWS Management Console, you can now go to the S3 Management Console. So go to Services. Now, normally these are grouped like this according to product category, but I always select A to Z because it's a lot easier to find things. So just go to S3, obviously under S. And what we want to do now is that we want to create a bucket, and we're going to create a bucket to put some files in. So let's click on Create Bucket. We'll give that bucket a name. So it has to be a unique name, not only in your AWS account, but it has to be unique across the entire AWS cloud. So that can be difficult sometimes. So I'm just going to put in a whole heap of rubbish in here, and I reckon that will be pretty unique. And we don't need to change anything else. We're going to use the US East North Virginia region, and we click on Next. So we won't worry about all of this other stuff here. We're going to learn more about that as you get on. And certainly if you go on further to become associate level certified, then you're going to learn a lot more about this stuff and a lot more in depth. So we just click on Next for now because it's just an introduction. Now, this is where we create we set our permissions. So what we need to do is just leave this as private. But if we wanted to, we could make it public and public read access. And that would be important if we were going to be creating a website, for example. We could do that here. But for now, we're just going to leave that as private. And we just review that and click on Create Bucket. So that's how easy it is to create a bucket using the Amazon S3 service. So what we can do now is that we can select that bucket just by clicking on the link to it here. And we can upload files to that bucket. So we click on Upload. Now, the best and most reliable way I've found of uploading objects is to drag and drop them straight onto this form here. So I've just got a couple of files here, just some Word documents. So you just select something that's pretty small and upload that. So there we go. And make sure it's something small that you're uploading. Don't upload something big or you'll be there waiting till Christmas for it to upload. So just click on Next. And we can see here we've got the same sorts of questions about permissions. So we're going to leave it as do not grant public read access, just the same as we did on the bucket. We want to keep everything private here. So we'll click on Next. And we've got a selection for storage classes. So we're going to leave that as it is. But again, further on in the course, we're going to learn more about the different types of storage classes and the benefits of those. But we'll leave that as it is. And we'll click on Upload. So quite quickly, they're pretty small files. They'll upload to Amazon S3. And there we go. So they've been uploaded. And that's how easy it is to create a bucket and upload some stuff. It's really quite simple. Now, if we want to get that back again, for example, all we need to do is to select it and then click on Download here, or we can click on More and Download As. But I'm just going to click on Download here because it's popped up there for me. And there we go. That file has downloaded back for me again. So that's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete it all. So delete everything out of that bucket. Watch, I just delete one of them. So again, what we can do is click on Delete. And we'll click on Delete again. And there we go. So that object has deleted quite easily. So another thing we can do now is that if we go up the top here and click on Amazon S3, that'll take us back to our list of buckets. So if we click on that now, and what we can do is if we, instead of clicking on the link here, if we click outside of that link, it'll select that bucket for us. And what we can do is that we can empty that bucket. Now, because we're emptying the entire contents of a bucket, it's asking us for the name of that bucket. So I'm just going to copy it from up here and paste it into there and confirm. And there we go. So it's emptied that bucket. So if we go back into that bucket, you can see the bucket is empty. So I'm just going to go back again up to Amazon S3 and again click outside of the link here to select the bucket. And what we can do now is we can delete the bucket. So I'm going to delete that bucket and bring it straight back to where we started. So again, I just paste in the name of that bucket and click confirm. So there we go. We do not have any buckets. So at the end of each lab, I always try to make sure that I delete everything that I've created. And the reason for that is that you don't want to pay for this stuff. And even if you would have left that here, it still would have been covered under the free tier, but it is good practice to make sure that you delete everything after you've created it if you don't need it later on. So now it's up to you to go and download the lab notes, do this all yourself. I know it's a very, very simple lab, but the course is designed for people that have never used AWS before. And so we will be building upon this. And by the time you get through to the end of the course, you'll be doing some very advanced stuff. So I look forward to seeing you in the next one.